Meld is showing no signs of slowing down, with major upgrades being deployed for their web-based extension as well as their mobile application. As a part of today's video, I want to dive into some alpha that was just released surrounding their VASP license and the types of RWAs we can expect to launch on the Meld network, in addition to some news surrounding their secret product. What's up, Meld Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here, Fareed. Today, we're diving into a massive update when it comes to the Meld protocol. Now, Meld is a lending and borrowing platform. They've also built out their own L1. And if you guys have not kept up with Meld, make sure to go ahead and check out my prior playlist, which breaks down their history starting all the way back from Cardano. Now, as a part of today's video, I want to dive into some updates with respect to their Meld app. We've got a brand new version that was just released. We've also got some pretty key updates to review within their dev diary, as well as new bridgeable assets, which include USDT, USDC, as well as ETH. Following that, I want to talk about some alpha that was just released by Gediminas, their CIO, with respect to their VASP license, or their virtual asset provider license, as well as updates surrounding Meld attending token 2049 and ETH Dubai taking place in no other than, of course, Dubai. In closing, we've got some pretty cool series coming here, aka labeled as Learning on Meld, and we're going to close out here with some community updates. If you enjoy content like this, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by and you want more content like this surrounding Meld, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions, then make sure to go ahead and leave them down below. Jumping right on into the first topic for today's video, we have the Meld app version 1.3.11 officially released. Now, keep in mind, the Meld team has developed their browser-based extension, or their browser-based wallet, and they also have a functional mobile wallet, which is now available for testing as well. If you don't already have access to that, you can go ahead and gain access to it by purchasing one of their Meld Diamond Hand NFTs and applying for the beta testing role. Now, jumping right into the dev diary, we have some of the updates that have just been released with that brand new release version. So it states here, with build 1.3.11, a bunch of UI and UX modifications have been made, including one of the biggest features here, the ability to set up a seedless account. Now, this allows for you to skip the recovery phrase process in the backing up process early on, but you can go ahead and do that after the fact. So when it comes to just quickly getting access to a wallet, quickly jumping into DeFi, you can go ahead and use this brand new flow in order to get started. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to be able to break down all of the individual pieces here, but I'll leave the link to the official dev diary down below. These are released once per week from the actual team. Now, we've got an additional update here for the Meld mobile application. Now, I released a video breaking down all the features of this as well. Please make sure to go ahead and check that out. So it states here, they've got a brand new feature, right, which is the integration of Wallet Connect. Wallet Connect has already been integrated into their web-based application. And if you're not familiar with Wallet Connect, this allows for you to quickly and seamlessly connect your wallet to some of the biggest dApps within Cardano, as well as the ETH and Avalanche ecosystems. Again, check out my prior video breaking that down. We've also got a new feature, the ability to convert your Meld to Gmeld. So Meld is the native governance token and the native utility token for the Meld ecosystem. However, Gmeld is the equivalent gas token that you need in order to make transactions. So you can now convert between Meld into Gmeld, or vice versa, Gmeld directly back into Meld. They've also added a brand new private mode feature, which allows for you to mask all of your user balances across the Meld app for security purposes. They've also made a pretty big update here, allowing for US phone numbers to now set up an account. This was one of my biggest pain points when I first got access to the app. I didn't have the ability to sign up or register as a US resident, but you can now go ahead and do so. And it's a pretty simple process. So you essentially sign up, you create your email, and then you plug in your phone number, and they send you a text message directly to the phone number that you've got set up. And in my case, in times past, because I was in the US, I wasn't able to receive that text message. So you should now be able to go ahead and sign up and begin testing if you are within the US. Now, keep in mind that the banking services, because Meld does provide two sets of services. One is crypto to crypto. That is completely trustless and permissionless. But from the banking perspective, US residents will not have access to that, at least early on, until we get more regulatory clarity. So do keep that in mind. Lastly, we've got some pretty cool things here with respect to flash loans. So the team has now, from a backend perspective, implemented flash loans into their lending and borrowing. And they've also continued working on their yield boost feature. I'm going to talk a little bit more about yield boost here in just a minute, but this is essentially a way for you to earn 2x yield, right? So you can earn from bridging into the Meld ecosystem, and then you can also earn from supplying directly into their lending and borrowing. Last but not least, we've got some pretty cool alpha here. The team has configured infrastructure for the new Meld airdrop service. If I'm not mistaken, the team is also working on additional content to sort of have their own airdrop dashboard and just airdrop infrastructure in their ecosystem. So right now we have the Meld Generic campaign and the Meld airdrop campaign, which allows for you to sign in and contribute directly on Zeely, a community engagement and tracking platform. But moving forward, I believe the team will be working to set up their own infrastructure to do all of this in-house tracking off-chain tasks as well as on-chain tasks taking place directly on their own L1. So a lot of alpha there coming in directly from the Dev Diary. Again, make sure to keep up with those, released once per week. Next, we have some brand new assets which have now been added to the Meld protocol. As it stands right now, we have the ability to bridge USDC coming in from Avalanche or potentially Ethereum directly over into the Meld ecosystem. From there, you can use it as you wish on DEXs, providing that as liquidity, or alternatively, providing that as an asset for somebody else to borrow on the lending and borrowing side of the protocol. In addition, we have support coming in for Ethereum on the Meld network. Again, you can lock that up on ETH natively, and then you can also go ahead and get a wrapped version of ETH on the Meld network that you can use in the protocol or on the DEXs, which will be launching on the ecosystem. Last but not least, you have the support for USDT. So Meld coming out of the gate, supporting some of the biggest stable coins and arguably, right, one of the biggest L1 tokens, which is Ethereum. Again, this is exactly why I'm so bullish on Meld, why I'm excited for what they're building. And yes, while the product has taken a little bit longer than what most people would expect, they have put together a product that will be, I believe, in my eyes, incomparable to other sort of DeFi solutions, which have really only focused on crypto to crypto. Again, Meld is aiming to build the banking stack, which means that this has to connect back over into TradFi or into Web 2. That actually is going to segue us directly into the next piece here, which is their VASP license. And so I talked about this before, but this is their virtual asset provider license, which gives Meld the ability to create assets. They can also manage and custody crypto assets. They have the ability to on and off ramp fiat into crypto and crypto into fiat, and just so much more. And again, check out my video, which I break down the value and all the abilities that this particular license provides the Meld team. In addition, we've seen them partnering up with BitLocust, which will allow for them to quickly, right, on and off ramp. And they've talked about the fact that this will be starting off initially with the European region with a on and off ramp directly for the euro. Now, this is huge, right? Because again, this is now the beginning of that bridge between Web3, which is the crypto side of things, and Web 2, which is the TradFi side of the equation. Next, we have Meld also partnering up with Swarm. Again, I've highlighted this in my prior videos, but this allows for Meld to now have RWAs or digitized real world assets, right, which include commodities as well as stocks, be brought on chain, and not just to tap into their value, but also to use them as collateral on the Meld L1. So this opens up a huge use case for Meld, but it also allows for brand new types of liquidity to come into the Meld ecosystem. Again, another reason why I'm so bullish here on what this team is building. Now, we also have the team recently participating in Dubai for Token 2049. Ken is out there, he is speaking, and you can meet up with him. But earlier today, we saw him presenting at a pretty big talk. I don't recall the name here. I'll have to see if I can find it, but this was in front of a huge sort of panel of investors, potential users, right? Potential clientele when it comes to Meld. So this is exactly what you want to see. Meld branching out, really laying down the foundation, networking, and drawing new eyeballs into the platform. Now, at this point, I do want to take a quick minute just to ask you to smash that thumbs up if you are enjoying this type of content. Again, really trying to keep you guys updated when it comes to everything Meld. Now, I want to back up a little bit and talk a little bit more about the VASP license, though, and exactly how this plays a part in terms of what some of these services Meld will be offering in the future for their customers. So first and foremost, there was a recent community space held by the team. I'll go ahead and just leave a link to that down below. You guys definitely have to go and watch this. This was a huge, huge bit of alpha here. The team took questions from the community. They talked about their recent development and what we can expect in the next couple of months. So again, touching back on the VASP license, we heard from Gediminas, their CIO or Chief Information Officer, and he basically talked about the fiat on-ramping and off-ramping, again, being done with BitLocust. But he also talked about the fact that after the euro, they will be onboarding support for G5 currencies. That includes the US dollar, the Japanese yen, as well as the British pound and the French franc. So some of the more used currencies being added to Meld's suite of supported fiat. In addition, he talked about allowing for RWAs to be created and distributed not only to retail, but also to institutional investors. But then he also highlighted some pretty big alpha here, which is the fact that the Meld team will be offering tokenized baskets. So you could imagine, for example, wanting to invest in some of the top AI stocks or in the top AI protocols, right, with real world assets and the ability for them to digitize stocks and bring that on chain with the partnership with Swarm. They'll be creating baskets to allow for people to invest in certain types of trends or in certain types of markets. So Gediminas highlighted gaming, AI, DPIN, etc. I think you kind of get the point here, but imagine being able to use your Meld tokens, swap that over for an RWA or for a RWA based basket of different assets. In addition, he talked about the fact that these stocks or these RWAs will have to be purchased initially directly from the Meld DEX or from a Meld DEX on the ecosystem. Now, Meld has already mentioned in times past Azomi, which is building a third-party DEX independent from Meld, but they are helping them, right, to launch on the network. And right now, they've already undergone testing on the testnet with millions of dollars of trading volume being executed using the Azomi DEX. So things do seem to be ramping up quite quickly. But when we get the integration of RWAs, you'll be able to trade them directly on the Meld protocol, right, using potentially the Azomi DEX. So that is a little bit of speculation there on my end, but that's the only DEX that we've heard of so far when it comes to Meld. Now, last but not least here, they did clarify that you will not be able to transfer your stocks, right, directly from some sort of brokerage account, for example, like Webull or even Schwab or TD Ameritrade directly into the Meld ecosystem. So initially, Meld will be minting and supplying the RWA-backed assets directly into the ecosystem. And then from there, you can use your Meld token or USDC, USDT, or wrapped Ethereum in order to purchase those assets directly from the Meld protocol. Now, eventually, if they could get to that point, obviously that would be great, making it a lot easier for people who already hold traditional stocks to bring that into their ecosystem. Now, granted, there would have to be some sort of vetting process, potentially even a KYC process, and also a tokenization process taking place to move those physical or those real world stocks into the digital world. Last but not least, they did talk about the fact that the actual VASP license is valid for the entire country or the entire continent, of Europe, not just a specific country. And because of the MiCA laws or the MiCA regulations, which I believe stands for markets in crypto assets, it's essentially a framework of governing rules for how crypto are treated within Europe. So right now, MiCA is set to go into effect in 2025. And ahead of that, Meld is able to operate using the VASP license. But once MiCA goes into effect, the team will have to add additional requirements in order to make sure that they stay compliant with respect to the entire jurisdiction of the MiCA laws. Now, that said, that's really the big highlight there that I want to talk about when it comes to the VASP license. I do want to jump over here and talk about the Meld Basics or Learning on Meld series being hosted by Ken. So if you guys aren't already following Meld on YouTube, I'll leave the link to that down below. Make sure to go ahead and tune in. The team has put together some amazing content. So Ken is a creator at heart, and his drawing and creator skills really show in this new series. So he talks about what the Meld nodes are. He talks about yield boost or the double yield. He talks about crypto to crypto and crypto to fiat and the incentivization model that Meld has sort of founded, right? Which is extremely unique to make sure that both the users on the chain have low gas fees while still providing enough rewards for node operators to continue running. Now, the way that Meld is able to do this is by separating the typical connection between fees, right, which are paid out between users or which are paid to the protocol between users, which then go back to the node operators. And the way that they're able to do that is by basically saying, hey, we're going to use the lending and borrowing liquidity, not all of the liquidity, but the profit and yield generated from that, right? And tie that back over to the rewards that the node operators receive, as opposed to only rewarding node operators based off of transaction fees done by traditional users on the network. So this allows for Meld to still have relatively low gas fees for everyday users in the transactions that they want to make, but it also allows for the node operators to still be satisfied by still earning high rewards, especially as the value of the Meld token increases in the future. This is a problem that's plaguing a lot of ecosystems right now because, again, you have conflicting interest with users who want cheap gas fees, right, or cheap transaction fees. But if they have cheap transaction fees, that means less reward for node operators, which basically are the backbone to the ecosystem, right? So you want to make sure both parties are happy in an ecosystem, and Meld has devised a way to be able to make sure that the protocol is good, lending and borrowing, but also that the fees are cheap for end users, but then also that the node operators are also happy in the equation. So really, really interesting. Again, check out this learning series if you guys want to get a better understanding. And in closing, I do want to quickly touch on their yield boost feature. So Ken breaks down this feature again in his video, highlighting the fact that with Meld, you can already earn a yield by providing liquidity, right, or your crypto assets for their lending and borrowing protocol. So for example, if you have Meld, you can supply that on the protocol and you can earn a yield by providing your asset for somebody else to borrow. Now, in addition, with this yield boost feature, imagine having ADA, right, on the Cardano network and wanting to transfer that over into the Meld ecosystem. Well, Meld has a bridge in collaboration with Chainport. And with this yield boost feature, you can actually take your native ADA, right, which is typically locked in order for you to bridge it over. But when it's going to be locked on Cardano natively, that'll be added to a stake pool. So you'll have ADA staked on the Cardano network, earning you about 3% from Cardano staking. But then you're also going to have a representation of ADA minted on the Meld network, right? Now you can provide that wrapped version of ADA directly into the Meld protocol. But then in addition, what the Meld team will do is take the yield from the ADA staked natively on Cardano and also put that into the lending and borrowing protocol. So I assume there'll be some sort of conversion process there as well, but you'll be able to earn your traditional staking rewards from whatever ecosystem you're bridging from into the Meld ecosystem, as well as the lending and borrowing revenue by being a asset provider. So really interesting, innovative features coming in here from Meld. And that's not even mentioning the Genius loan, which is a self-repaying loan based off of how much you're able to put into the protocol in terms of what you're supplying versus how much you're borrowing. So this team has put together an interesting model here. Again, not just your everyday or average lending and borrowing protocol, but they're really an entire ecosystem providing a stack of services from beginning to end, starting from cold hard fiat, translating that over into the Web3 or digital space. In closing, again, make sure to go ahead and check out the community updates. They will be having one this coming Thursday. But I want to highlight some alpha that was leaked out by Ken here as well. So Ken talked about the fact that typically, with banking and service providers, you do tend to see some of them going down, especially in times of low liquidity. Most notably, we saw SVB or Silicon Valley Bank going down at a pretty critical time when a lot of FOMO, or a lot of fear, I should say, was in the markets. In order to avoid this, Meld will be aiming to have at least 6 concurrent banking partners, which will offer overlapping services to make sure that if any single bank entity goes down, that there is redundancy in the system to make sure that there is no sort of outage, right? Or no sort of issues being felt by the end user on the other side of the equation. In addition, he talked about their EMI license. So get a load of this. Meld is now working on getting EMI licenses put in place in the Caymans as well as in Canada. Now, with the VASP license being done in Lithuania, I assume they're also probably working there as well. But they've talked about stepping away from Switzerland, which is where the initial Meld Foundation would have been out of, given the micro regulations, et cetera, which have recently come down. So Meld appears to be expanding and looking for EMI licenses, again, in the Caymans as well as Canada. Ken also talked about adding support for Bitcoin, right, which is still in the works. And he's, I think, on the fence with supporting the Lightning Network, But he did confirm that they'll be working to add ordinals as well as the runes protocol, which is a fungible token standard just recently released or announced on the Bitcoin network. Now, he did close out by saying that lending and borrowing is their main priority moving over into the remainder of 2024. So they're not going to be picking up any new initiatives until lending as borrowing has been audited and is live on the mainnet. Of course, that's their bread and butter. That's going to really be what starts the flywheel effect to bring liquidity, users, and adoption to the Meld L1, while also, again, with their new model, providing an additional yield for node operators as well as stakers to those node operators as well. Last but not least, we have the secret product. So Ken did not give us any sort of confirmation, but he did mention that they've got tons of millions of dollars worth of trading activity taking place on the testnet DEX. Again, I assume that's with Azomi. And he said that he's working with liquidity providers in order to get the secret product live on the mainnet. Now, again, I'm not exactly sure what this is all about, but it does sound like it is very close, and we should get an announcement from the team in the next couple of weeks, if not the next couple of months. That will do it there for updates surrounding Meld, a pretty big one here. I hope you guys found this to be helpful. We dove, into the MELDapp release, the Dev Diary, as well as new bridgeable assets, the VASP license, token 2049, learning on Meld, and their recent community update. As always, if you learn anything along the way, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by and you want more content like this, breaking down everything going on with Meld, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions for me, then make sure to go ahead and leave them down below. That said, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video.